Hi there, welcome to yet another Sanity Reviews. I know it's been a little bit since I've last done any of this particular series, but it's largely because, well, there isn't really much to review as of late. However, just recently a massive update for one of my favorite games of all time, Ultrakill, just came out, and I think it's only natural that I decide to actually review this particular update. Why does it look like the gain on everything is so fucking low? That should not be. This new Ultra-Revamp update basically serves to, well, do exactly that. Revamp a whole bunch of stuff within the base game, as well as make things look significantly nicer, better, and overall more enjoyable. And, well, I'm here to just kind of evaluate just how well it did in that regard. And all I will say is the short answer is yes, it did all of that and more. But of course, here's the long answer. The long answer is the rest of this video if you care to listen. Of course, I might do a So I Streamed edition of this at some point in the near future. I just wanted to kind of get my review out there as soon as possible because, well, why the hell not? I mean, no one's really gonna stop me, and I feel like it's better that I start off with a review before you guys see my initial raw reaction. So let's get into this one. So, I feel like the best way to kind of go about it is, of course, go layer by layer, because going level by level will probably take way too long, and honestly, well, some levels just don't really have too much of anything to note in particular. So, let's just get into this one. The Prelude. I personally really like the fact that they really honed in on the fact that the Prelude is like some sort of large facility or factory or something along those lines. They added in a couple of new rooms, like that one weird cafeteria room that ends up becoming the bane of your existence during the encore version of the level, but that's neither here nor there. Overall, I really just enjoy how they really honed in onto that one, and especially within, I believe it's 0-4, where just everything is like, blazing hot. I think that part is really cool in my personal opinion, and of course, it's also your introduction to the retextured Cerberus, which now looks, well, like something that I would see in a Giga Chat edit, which is probably the biggest compliment that I can really give it, because, I mean, holy crap, it looks awesome. But on top of that, too, they also added in a couple more secret orbs within 0-3 and 0-4 to at least make all the secret orbs even across the entire game, which is pretty nice. And on top of that, too, I feel like I should also mention something wicked looks more terrifying. Within the terminal, it looks like Gygus. Within the actual level, it looks like this. As if you couldn't make this fucking stick figure look even more terrifying. Somehow they managed to say bet and made it genuinely look like an Eldritch Horror, which I both love and hate at the exact same time. Limbo! Limbo is probably among one of my favorite revamps in my personal opinion. Again, they really honed in on the whole false paradise kind of deal, where everything is like holographic and whatnot. They made the trees not only look like trees, but holographic trees. They actually have some actual bushes, it seems like, which I think is pretty neat. And of course, they made the skybox look a little bit less like a skybox and more like a simulated pasture, which I think is really nice. That was kind of the one thing that I kind of found was really off about Limbo, was the fact that the skybox didn't really look like it was simulating the rest of the terrain, and it just kind of felt really boxed in. I really like how they actually enhanced upon that and actually made it look a little bit better. It's also the introduction to the new skull textures and whatnot, which of course, have some new models and some icons and whatnot to at least differentiate them for those with color blindness, which I think is really nice. They did the same thing with the Knuckle Blaster and the Feedbacker as well, which again, really fucking nice. I really appreciate that, and there's really not much else I can say about it other than it's really goddamn cool that they did that. Just, mwah, chef's kiss. You guys are awesome. Lust. Lust is probably one of my favorite layers aesthetically, and they really just made it significantly better in my personal opinion. First of all, there's an actual skyline rather than it being like a JPEG texture on the ground, which I think is really neat. They also have a few little cranes here and there that kind of, enhance the decorations a little bit. The city parts of the game look, well, exactly like that. They look like cities and whatnot. And of course, when you take the rail cannon, the power actually shuts off for the rest of the level, which I think is pretty neat. There's really not too much to note, I think, with 2-3, at least not to my knowledge, but apparently they did add in a health bar for the first Mind Flayer encounter, and they also added in male Mind Flayers. I have yet to run into one myself naturally, but at least here's a screenshot of it to at least prove that it exists. I'm not entirely sure on the validity of this screenshot, but hey, it's at least a neat little thing to think about, and of course it also adds on to the lore, because it literally mentions that there's supposed to be male Mind Flayers that exist, but you never get to see any within the game, so I'm glad that they at least kind of added that in as probably like, a rare occurrence whenever a Mind Flayer is supposed to spawn in, so overall, I think that's pretty neat. Oh yeah, the corpse of King Minos fight looks pretty nice, especially since, you're actually within, like, the city and whatnot. Again, just really fucking cool, okay? I love the Lust layer in terms of its aesthetics, and they really just made it even better. Gluttony. Jesus fucking Christ. There's really not much else I could say about it other than that, because it scares the living hell out of me. I both love and hate everything that they did about it. I also love the, revamped Minos Prime Arena. Again, just overall really fucking nice. I have no complaints other than it looks disgusting, but I think that's kind of the point. Greed. There's not too much to note about Greed. I mean, they made the sand look like golden sand, which I think is really nice. They made the statues and whatnot actually have some more polygons and whatnot. One thing I forgot to mention within Limbo is that they added in some more statues and whatnot, which of course also exists throughout the rest of the game, which, again, really nice. Again, not too much to note about Greed. There's really not too much of anything else within any of the rest of the levels that I really need to talk about, so we're just going to move on to Wrath. Wrath! They made it rain a lot more within 5-2, which I think is really nice. They also made my favorite level in the entire game, Ship of Fools, significantly better. I am not going to say anything else other than that. They just made my favorite level look even nicer. There's not much else. Oh yeah, and they also made the Leviathan an actual boss fight rather than a fucking pushover. Which again, I really appreciate, because with Wrath being probably my favorite layer in terms of pure gameplay, well, probably second only to Violence, but that's obviously natural, it's honestly kind of a disappointment that, like, its main layer boss was so disappointing before, but now they have genuinely made it just that much better. Of course, I've only gotten the standard mode experience, I don't know what it's like on any of the higher difficulties, it's probably even more insane, but hey, you can now actually parry the bite, which is pretty nice, which probably requires some timing that I have yet to master, but, you know, you can do it now. It's no longer a blue flash, which I think is pretty funny. So, yeah. Thank you, Hikita team, for deciding to do all that. Why fucking Hikita team? You know what, that's staying in the video. Whatever. I think that's just funny. Anyways, Heresy. Heresy is probably another new favorite layer of mine in terms of aesthetics. It's basically like Lust, except completely turned on its head, both literally and figuratively. They've also added in some burning coffins, which of course harkens back to the actual punishment within the Heresy layer, as detailed within Dante's Inferno, which I think is pretty nice. And if you get close to them, you can hear them screaming. Oh, and they're screaming!
Wonderful.
No, listen.
I like this.
And I think I heard "Get Me Out of Here."
Which I think is terrifying. Of course, there's also the changes to Gabriel's Arena. It's now no longer like a weird shallow pool area. It's now what looks like Promised Consort Radahn's Arena, which I think is really funny. But, yeah. And then finally, Violence. Violence, which is a layer that I didn't really touch upon within my live stream of this, which I am very disappointed in myself for not doing, but to be fair, there's really not too much to note within the Violence layer, other than a few little, like, graphical touch-ups here and there, as well as, like, the Feed It text that appears at the beginning of, No Sound, No Memory, no longer being a notification pop-up, but instead just being just menacing red text that just shows up on your screen very slowly as the Blood Fiends just kind of show up, which I think is really funny. And then, of course, with the Earth Mover, they enhanced the Earth Mover's appearance a little bit more. They actually made it very clear as to what is actually holding the Earth Mover down, which is, of course, the roots of the blood trees, which I think is pretty cool. And, of course, there's also the death animation, which they improved upon significantly. Like, that was probably my only complaint when it actually came to the Earth Mover level. Everything about the Earth Mover was absolutely fantastic up until just the disappointing death, where it was just like 4 legs that just kind of spun out of control. But now you actually get to see the entire thing burn and collapse, which is just... oh my god, it's so fucking cool. But now with all the revamps out of the way, with all that kind of stuff out of the way, let's actually get into some other new things, and pretty much the only other new things that have been added in with this new update, which is, of course, the Encore levels. The Encore levels, they've added in 2 brand new Encore levels, and to be fair, these are levels that are meant to be, done after you've completed the entire game, which, of course, the entire game isn't really finished as of yet, but you can still play the Encore levels because people want a challenge. And holy shit, a challenge it really is. The current 2 Encore levels are, of course, the Encore levels for the Prelude and Limbo, and I feel like I might as well go over my verdict of both of those. The Prelude one is honestly pretty cool. First half of it is basically the same facility, but completely now frozen over because of probably just years of not being in use whatsoever, and of course the music properly reflects that, which I think is pretty neat. Of course there's some enemies that kind of show up here and there that kind of, kind of throw you off just a little bit, and of course, yes, the ice does in fact have slippery physics, which is just very fucking annoying. But of course, once you finally reach the second half of the level and you're actually greeted by, well, the title of said level, That is, of course, when you, are suddenly greeted with the main gimmick of this particular level, which is a fucking timer before your entire health bar gets sapped away by the heat. You literally end up in a deep fryer for about the second half of the level, which is both extremely stressful and very annoying. Like, I love the level, don't get me wrong. The aesthetic of it is absolutely fantastic, and I love the gimmick, but it's also very goddamn annoying because, well, it's perpetual hard damage, and Jesus fucking Christ, you're literally running against the clock. Thankfully, there are in fact cooling stations that you can at least use to reset that timer, but usually by the time you reach those, you're at 1 fucking health anyways, so you're better off just going back to the fucking checkpoint. Like, I don't know. Zero-E is really annoying, that's really all I have to say about it. 1-E, however, is both cool and surprisingly fun. Sure, I may have played it with, major assists enabled and whatnot, purely because I was burned out just by 0-E, but it was still a pretty fun level nonetheless, while I was still just trying to give it my all. It was a fun level, really cool aesthetic, with everything kind of just being dead and barely functioning, and of course you get to see a little bit of a peek behind the curtains when it comes to Limbo Lair, seeing the facility that runs the simulation, which is also pretty damn cool. Like, overall, the level is just fucking awesome, and it, of course, in my opinion, has the best out of the entire new soundtrack, in my personal opinion. I mean, just take a listen to this. But yeah, overall, with this entire particular update, I'm going to quickly give my verdict, as I believe I've pretty much gone over everything major that could really be gone over. I mean, there might be some technical things that kind of got changed, but let's be honest here, I barely even notice those half the time, and that's usually not what I go over whenever I cover new updates of anything that I enjoy, so let's quickly give my verdict. I give this brand new update of Ultrakill, the Ultra-Revamp update, a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. The pros of this particular update is, of course, well, the new levels, which are fantastic, the overhauls to the levels, which are absolutely amazing, the reworks of some of, the enemies, namely the Leviathan and whatnot, and, of course, some touch-ups to some, enemy designs here and there, which I think is pretty neat. The only cons that really exist is that, well, Greed didn't really get too much of a touch-up, and that one is kind of, one of my favorite layers, in my personal opinion. They also didn't really touch up P-2 all too much, which is kind of a missed opportunity. And of course, the gimmick of the second half of 0-E made me want to tear my hair out. But overall, that's really about it. There's really not too much else to cover. It's just an overall really fun update, and of course, just really fucking cool. There's not much else to say about it. But yeah, anyways guys, if you guys enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like, it's very well appreciated. Leave a comment down below what you thought about the video, what you want me to talk about next, and also subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want to see more content such as this. Also go ahead and follow me on Blue Sky, join the Discord server, and of course special thanks to the channel members. But yeah, in case you can't tell, it's been a while since I've actually done this outro, so yeah. Anyways guys, it's been Sanity, and have yourselves a nice day.